What if I told you something from outside our solar system just started sending perfect signals directly at Earth, right in front of our telescopes, and nobody knows why? Stick around, because what happens next will blow your mind. Right now, something is happening in our solar system that no astronomer has ever witnessed before. The mysterious interstellar traveler known as 3I Atlas has just done something that breaks every rule in the book of physics. I'm not talking about a small anomaly or a glitch in data. This is the kind of event that forces scientists to rethink what we thought we understood about the universe itself. If you're captivated by the mystery of 3I Atlas and want to see more mind-bending cosmic stories, smash that like button and let the universe know you're watching. Every click helps keep the search for the unknown alive. As 3I Atlas continues its journey through our solar neighborhood, telescopes from Earth to orbit are picking up readings that simply shouldn't exist. Ripples moving through the electromagnetic field, radiation patterns twisting in ways no natural object should produce. Whatever this visitor is, it's behaving like it's following instructions, as if it's activating something. You know, scientists are now calling this moment the most perplexing discovery since the detection of the first interstellar object, Oumuamua. But this one is different. The data doesn't just defy expectations, it rewrites them. And as we move closer to the object's critical approach to the sun, one question echoes louder than ever before. What exactly has 3I Atlas triggered inside our solar system? And why does it seem to be building towards something? Because if the signals we're seeing are more than natural, if they're part of a larger, deliberate sequence, then this moment may mark not just a new chapter in science, but the beginning of a story far older and stranger than humanity itself. Let's rewind to mid-October. The Hubble Space Telescope, repositioned specifically to monitor 3I Atlas, began capturing something that should not exist in any known model of physics. Astronomers expected to see a quiet dim interstellar rock gliding past. Instead, the data revealed ripples, not in space itself, not in gravity, but in something even stranger, the local electromagnetic field surrounding the object. These ripples behaved like waves moving across a cosmic pond, spreading outward for millions of kilometers. Dr. Sarah Chen from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics was the first to notice the anomaly buried deep in the spectroscopic data. When she called to share her findings, her voice carried both awe and disbelief. She said, "We're measuring coherent electromagnetic oscillations emanating from 3I Atlas at precisely 1.42 gigahertz. That frequency, the hydrogen line, is known as the universal channel of the cosmos. The one frequency every technologically advanced civilization would recognize. It's the signal SETI scientists have been listening to for decades, the cosmic dial tone of the universe." But what made this discovery truly terrifying was not the frequency itself, but its coherence. Natural sources emit at the hydrogen line all the time, but they do so with random fluctuations, chaotic noise. The signature of natural processes, what Hubble recorded, was the opposite. It was organized, stable, purposeful, So now the question is no longer if 3I Atlas is emitting, it's why. Because when something out there begins broadcasting on the most meaningful frequency in the universe, and it does so with perfect mathematical precision, we have to consider the unthinkable. Only 3 days after Hubble's shocking detection, on October 18th, a strange pattern began sweeping across the skies of the northern hemisphere. Amateur radio operators from Canada to Germany to Japan all reported the exact same experience. For 47 seconds, their receivers were flooded with interference, unlike anything they had ever encountered. But this wasn't random static. It wasn't the chaotic burst of a solar flare or a passing satellite. When the data was plotted on a global map, the locations of those disturbances formed a perfect arc across the Earth's surface, pointing directly toward the position of 3 Atlas in the sky at that very moment. One of the first to analyze it was Marcus Rodriguez, a veteran telecommunications engineer from Colorado. He ran the signals through Fourier analysis, breaking the noise into its fundamental components, and what he found left scientists speechless. The interference contained repeating intervals that followed a precise mathematical progression. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. The Fibonacci sequence. So that sequence appears everywhere in nature, in the spirals of galaxies, the petals of flowers, the pattern of a seashell, but to find it encoded in a synchronized radio disturbance tied to the location of an interstellar visitor, that's not coincidence, that's communication. Experts around the world scrambled to find a natural explanation. Solar activity? None. Atmospheric reflection? Impossible. Magnetic resonance? No match. Every mundane theory collapsed under the weight of the evidence. So if it wasn't nature, what was it? A signal, a pulse, a handshake across the stars? Whatever it was, it didn't end there, because in the days that followed, more anomalies appeared stranger, stronger, and unmistakably deliberate. Yeah. As reports of strange electromagnetic behavior multiplied, scientists everywhere did what they always do when the unknown arrives. They tried to fit it inside the familiar. Solar activity was the first suspect. Maybe the sun was in one of its quiet flare phases, and a coronal burst had somehow coincided with the path of 3I Atlas. But the data didn't lie. The Parker Solar Probe recorded a calm, steady solar wind. No flares, no eruptions, no chaos. Next came the comet theory. Perhaps this interstellar traveler was releasing gas or dust that interacted with sunlight in some exotic way. But comets don't produce coherent electromagnetic waves, and they certainly don't broadcast at 1.42 gigahertz, the universal hydrogen frequency. Some theorize that the object's magnetic field might be interacting with the interplanetary medium-charged particles, twisting and colliding, generating radiation, a plausible guess, but one that failed almost instantly. Natural radiation scatters across many frequencies. What we were seeing was narrowband, precise surgical nature, doesn't carve signals with intent, right? So one by one, every comfortable explanation fell away. What remained was a possibility that made even seasoned physicists deeply uneasy. The kind of possibility that whispers from the edge of reason. What if 3I Atlas wasn't just another wandering rock from another star? What if its purpose wasn't random at all? By late October, the evidence had become impossible to ignore. The object was not just behaving strangely, it was responding. Its energy output, its signal coherence, its directional radiation, all of it shifting as if adjusting to something or someone, and that's when the James Webb Space Telescope saw it. Something that would push the scientific world to the brink of panic. When the James Webb Space Telescope locked its gaze on 3I Atlas, astronomers expected clarity. Instead, what they found sent a chill through every control room on Earth. The object wasn't reflecting light the way a comet or asteroid should. It wasn't even scattering it. It was absorbing almost every wavelength from infrared to ultraviolet, as if cloaked in a field designed to drink in radiation itself. Dr. Amir Hassan, part of Webb's Deep Space Imaging team, described it as the darkest object ever recorded beyond our solar system. Its surface temperature should have skyrocketed as it neared the sun, but somehow it didn't. Instead, its thermal signature dropped cooling as it approached heat. That's the exact opposite of how physics works. And then came the image that changed everything. Hidden in the raw pixel data, after hours of spectral cleaning, a faint geometric pattern emerged on one side of the object, not random ridges or craters, but a series of repeating triangular forms, perfectly aligned, equidistant, artificial. At first, scientists assumed it was an artifact, a digital glitch, or an imaging error, but the pattern persisted in every wavelength. Even in Webb's near-infrared imaging, which is nearly impossible to fake or distort through background noise, the geometry was real. Hassan's team ran structural simulations trying to imagine how such precision could exist naturally. No mineral formation, no known astrophysical process, no collision model produced those shapes. The only remaining explanation was one the scientific community was not ready to say aloud. Because if that symmetry wasn't a coincidence, if it was designed, then 3i Atlas wasn't just passing through, it was built. And as Webb continued to observe, even more unsettling happened. The triangular formations began to shift ever so slightly as though reacting to the telescope's infrared beams, a change too deliberate, too synchronized to ignore. Somewhere millions of miles away, an object from another star seemed to be watching back. The world had barely processed the James Webb revelation when a new alert came from the Deep Space Network in Canberra. Australia, during a routine tracking session, one of their massive antenna arrays picked up a faint but structured signal identical in frequency to the hydrogen line emissions previously detected from 3i Atlas, but this time carrying something embedded inside it. It wasn't random noise, it was data. At first, the team thought it was a digital echo caused by interference from a communications satellite, but when they isolated the pattern, the signal revealed something stunning, a repeating binary sequence. Short, then long, then short again, pulsing at perfect intervals of 7 seconds. When translated into a spectrographic graph, the data formed a spiral, an unmistakable, elegant curve identical to the Fibonacci ratio seen earlier in the radio disturbances. For days, the pattern kept repeating,
interesting.
Precise and unwavering. It wasn't drifting like a natural burst or decaying like a flare. It was deliberate, structured, intelligent. That's when Dr. Elena Navarro from the European Space Agency ran a decoding algorithm, the same one SETI had designed decades ago for hypothetical extraterrestrial contact. After 12 hours of computation, her computer produced a result that froze everyone in the room. The signal, when mapped into a visual grid, contained a schematic, a form of three-dimensional geometry that looked eerily similar to the triangular formations seen on the surface of 3i Atlas. It wasn't random art or alien language. It was architecture, a design blueprint. Navarro refused to release the image publicly, but insiders leaked fragments. Engineers claimed it resembled a resonance chamber, something built to amplify energy through harmonic vibration. Others whispered that it looked less like a chamber and more like a beacon. Governments quickly went silent. The Deep Space Network logs were locked behind classified access. NASA redirected observation priorities without explanation. And for the first time since the event began, SETI officially suspended public reports, because whatever this signal was, whoever sent it, it wasn't a cry for help, it was a response. By early November, the skies had gone quiet. The radio bursts, the electromagnetic pulses, even the faint ripples once surrounding 3i Atlas, all of it stopped. The silence was total. It was as if the entire phenomenon had simply powered down. But deep in that silence, instruments across multiple observatories kept picking up something, not a sound, not a light, but a vacuum shift, a subtle thinning of space itself around the object. Whatever was happening wasn't over. It was waiting. At NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, senior astrophysicist Dr. Rowan Ellery called it the eye of the storm. His team noticed that the object's trajectory had altered by a microscopic margin. A Dynern correction so precise that it couldn't have been caused by gravitational forces alone. It was as though 3i Atlas had just adjusted its own path. Meanwhile, the European Space Agency's solar orbiter captured the most haunting image yet, the object framed against the glow of the sun, completely dark except for one faint pulse of infrared light radiating every 12 minutes. It wasn't random. The timing was exact, 12 minutes on the mark every time, Then came a chilling discovery when plotted against Earth's rotation and orbital position. The 12-minute pulse aligned perfectly with a specific point in our magnetic field, a junction near the South Atlantic anomaly, where Earth's radiation belt dips closest to the surface, a region long known for mysterious satellite malfunctions and unexplained instrument resets. Coincidence, maybe once, but not now, not after everything, right? Across mission control centers worldwide, you could feel it, a sense of tension, a collective breath being held. Every scope, every antenna, every satellite pointed at that one dark traveler between the stars, because if the object was aligning itself with Earth's magnetic field, it wasn't drifting anymore. It was targeting, and as that next pulse drew near, the data monitors began to flicker, power fluctuations, static interference, screens dimming to black. Then at precisely 12 minutes past the hour, a final pulse, stronger, sharper, deliberate, and then nothing, the silence returned. But it wasn't empty anymore. It felt charged, like the quiet moment before thunder. The moment the final pulse from 3i Atlas hit, the world changed. It started as a flicker, a brief dip in satellite telemetry, a handful of lost communications. But within seconds, entire networks began to collapse. Air traffic systems froze. GPS constellations went dark. Power grids across Europe and South America surged and then failed in perfect synchronization. For 7 full minutes, our planet, the most connected civilization in history, was blind. No data, no guidance, just static and silence. At the European Space Operations Center, engineers stared at dead monitors, every fail-safe useless. Yet one system, the Deep Space Relay Node, stayed active long enough to transmit a single fragment of data before shutting down, a compressed image file. And when technicians reopened it later, what they found sent chills through every room it touched, right? The image wasn't random. It was a map, a three-dimensional projection overlaid on Earth's magnetosphere. At its center, pulsing faintly, was a single point of light directly over the South Atlantic anomaly, the same region where the 12-minute signal had been focusing for days. That's when ground sensors in Argentina, Namibia, and the South Atlantic reported a surge in ionization levels, a ripple moving dot upward through the atmosphere as if the planet itself had just responded. NASA's emergency communication channel crackled to life for less than 10 seconds. A voice, calm but trembling, came through. It's reflecting something back. The signal is coming from Earth now, but the strangest part, 3i Atlas was gone. Every telescope that once tracked it now faced an empty patch of sky. No object, no debris, not even a trace of reflected sunlight. It had vanished as if it had never been there at all. In the following hours, scientists across the world tried to explain what had just happened. And somewhere in that blank region of space, where 3i Atlas once drifted, faint radio echoes still whisper across the void, repeating the same sequence again and again. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. In the days following the disappearance of 3i Atlas, the world entered a strange limbo. Governments went silent. Research stations issued minimal statements, and the media struggled to make sense of an event that had no precedent. Publicly, the phenomenon was downplayed as a solar anomaly or a communication glitch. Privately, scientists were scrambling to understand what had just occurred. The electromagnetic disturbances, the directed thermal emissions, the radio interference, even the global blackout, they hadn't vanished. Instead, the traces left behind were subtle, embedded in satellite telemetry, deep space recordings, and the Earth's shifting magnetic field. It was as if 3i Atlas had left behind a fingerprint, a message, or a warning one that humanity was only beginning to decipher. Some researchers began to hypothesize the unimaginable. Perhaps the object wasn't just a visitor. Perhaps it had activated a network within our solar system, dormant structures placed long ago by unknown civilizations, waiting for the right trigger, and maybe, just maybe, its purpose was to observe, to measure, to prepare, or to test. CDI scientists, cryptographers, and physicists now work around the clock, attempting to decode the lingering signals, searching for patterns hidden within the noise. Every measurement, every anomaly, every pulse is being analyzed for signs of intelligence, for a message that could rewrite humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. And yet, the most profound mystery remains: why here? Why now? Why would 3i Atlas, traveling across unimaginable distances, choose to interact with our solar system, with Earth specifically? The object may have disappeared from view, but the questions it leaves behind are far from answered. And one thing is certain: the universe has shown us that we are not alone.
What the hell is with that?
And that the solar system we call
it's
home
done.
may
Okay.
hold secrets far older, far stranger,
21.
and far more deliberate than we ever imagined.
Have a good one, guys.
And as